Hey guys, welcome back for the second installment on my kind of training class update. If you didn't catch last week's video, I'm doing kind of a refresh of an old video that I did where I talk about the classes that I think are important for someone who's trying to be a well-rounded civilian defender. I'll link to part one down in the comments if you haven't seen it already. And other than that, let's just jump right into it. So, getting back into it. So the next piece of this, unfortunately, was kind of the catalyst for having to refresh the video because when it came to victim selection and the predatory process, understanding of violent criminal actors, the late Dr. Aprill's Unthinkable class was kind of what opened my eyes to all of this. Unfortunately, it's no longer available. So the good news is that there is a lot of Dr. Aprill's material that is commemorated on a tribute page over on Personal Defense Network. And so it's podcast interviews, other video content, things like that. And so it's obviously not the same, but it does touch on a whole lot of the same concepts that he addressed in his lecture. Given that, there's a few things out there that I've taken that touch on elements of his material that I think are still very much worthwhile. And John Hearne's Who Wins, Who Loses, and Why is a big one. Now, that looks at sort of defensive performance at large. So it goes into the psychology, the physiology. It's a very information dense lecture, so just be prepared for that. But it definitely is a valuable component to all of this. The other two are both offerings from Citizens Defense Research. The lecture piece of Armed Parent and Guardian, which is actually offered as its own independent block. So if you don't want to take the shooting component, you can just take the lecture. They touch on some of the same, it addresses some of the same, like, why would somebody do such an evil thing type of questions. So even if you don't have kids, like I don't, but it was an invaluable class from that standpoint. And the other one being the Chris Cypert's mental agility preparedness maps. Again, it goes into a lot of the mental preparation in order to confront violent criminal actors. And so between those three, they're it's not nearly as in-depth or comprehensive as Unthinkable was, but those still touch on some of the same attributes, and so it's kind of the next best thing. When it comes to books, there's a lot here that I think everybody should have on their shelf. Gift of Fear is one that a lot of people are familiar with. Creepology is another one, and I've actually gifted copies of that to a few women in my life recently. Facing Violence from Rory Miller was a really good sort of cultural insight into the world of violent criminal actors, as is Facing Violence, Varg Freeborn's book. So there's a lot there that allows us to sort of peek into that world without having to get the firsthand exposure to it, which is preferable. So that's kind of the best collection I've been able to compile to start to fill in the gap left when we lost William. And then, aside from books, Active Self Protection's YouTube channel. That's another great one. You're literally getting to watch game tape of criminal assaults. And so it's another resource to have for you to kind of pick apart, analyze, and better equip yourself so that way you can see those problems coming sooner. The verbal agility, the interpersonal piece of it, is another real critical component that is hard to train. And I'm not going to say that it's underrepresented, but it's definitely sort of a narrower sliver of the whole space. Again, ECQC, the managing unknown contacts portion, is where this kind of comes into play. And, really, that's there to just identify, is this person a problem or not? Now, the nice thing is that Cecil over at Immediate Action has his close contact pistol class that also is very, very muck heavy. So there are a couple of places to go where you're able to get exposure to practicing those, you're able to get reps in with those verbal skills. When it comes to actual reading material, again, verbal judo is exceptionally well known. How to Win Friends and Influence People is another one that just allows you to understand better the interpersonal dynamic. Because again, talking about active self-protection, how many of those fights didn't need to happen if someone had just had a little bit more social acumen, been able to stow the ego, and instead of throwing gas on the fire, just go, you know what, man, my bad, something to that degree. So when it comes to the verbal skills, those two books I think are going to be a good jumping off point for people. And then last, but certainly not least, the pistolcraft component of this. I'm not going to try to list specific classes here because there are honestly far too many to count. I would say that if there was one thing that I would tell people to look for, it would be look for an instructor who has been through the Rangemaster Instructor Development course. Ideally, if they've been through the advanced and master levels, those are even better indicators. Now, I'm not saying that someone who's just been through Rangemaster Basic is someone that you should shy away from, because it's still a rock solid course, and someone with that material is very likely putting on a solid foundational pistol class. So that would be kind of my spot check there. I know there are good instructors out there that are not Rangemaster certified yet, but if I have to point to one thing, that would be it. When it comes to reading material, again, Tom Givens, he has his concealed carry class book that is available, and I've given several copies of that away to folks in my life who are either brand new to owning a firearm or entertaining the idea of owning a firearm. The other one is Masad Ayub curated a list of articles, and the book is titled Straight Talk on Armed Self-Defense. And you've got a chapter in there from Dr. Aprill, Craig Douglas, Sherman House, John Hearne. It is this anthology of information that really does an exceptional job of addressing the holistic approach to the defensive lifestyle. And so those are the two that I would really call as essential. So I know this was a bit of a longer video, but it's critical that we address these kinds of things, because you've heard me talk about it before. I see folks getting very, very heavy on the shooting side of the equation, and then not necessarily investing the same kind of time and effort in these other facets. So, my goal has always been to be as well-rounded a defensive practitioner as possible. So, in the spirit of that, I thought this was going to be worth updating. What did I miss? Who didn't I mention? I want to hear about that down in the comments, so please let me know. And other than that, I hope everybody had a fantastic week. Stay dangerous and stay sharp.